2 years since we did the IFS Demo. Details and is this real and what about this part and that part, and I thought that it would be a good idea to check in and have a follow-up with you about the work that we did over 2 years ago. How are you with that?
I'm fine with it. You know, when you asked me to consider doing this again and revisiting the content of the video, I went and reviewed the video myself, and it's really interesting because I don't even remember the content of the video. And I'm watching this person that looks a lot like me and sounds like me in video land, and it's actually me. But what's most fascinating is that the conclusion, the upshot of the video was that I'd be working on being able to do something different than I was taught in my family, which was to not necessarily always say yes and not to reflexively or angrily say no, but to, when presented with some kind of need from somebody else, to say if it felt comfortable or if it didn't feel comfortable, and to enter into some kind of negotiation. And in retrospect, I would say in the last 2 years, that has been radically different for me. And so when they say that it's life-changing, it's quite impressive about the IFS, because unconsciously I was actually using some of this material. And I think all of you 13,000 plus people who are watching these videos can understand that saying yes and saying no in the right way, in the right time, is a very human challenge, and that we all struggle with it. But there was a marked shift, and reflecting in the last 2 years, it was quite influential what came about from this IFS work.
So people want to know what.
Because in the bylines of the video, most people can see that we have the same last name, so it's not a big shocker that we are husband and wife and that we're both therapists. So in that sense, it can't be a real session. However, it was a very deep session. It was a very, very deep session, and it was deep because on the one hand we do know each other, and on the other hand, as much as I could, I reached for authentic material and spoke about things that really happened to me and were happening to me. And I was quite surprised. I was quite surprised about my parts and what came up. And so I would say it was quite real and authentic. And the impact was as well for me.
So people want to know concrete details about how you're doing after all this time.
Well, I think that the stomach aches remained much less. I would say that the stone, which was very big and dissolved, I do feel it a bit still there, like maybe a pebble, almost like a scar that you have from your childhood, and you're not necessarily upset by it. It's not disfiguring. You just know that it's there. And I have this little tiny pebble still there that's a part of this experience, but I would say mostly not terrible stomach aches and not feeling like there's something clamping down. I was very surprised that the stone dissolved so quickly just with love. That just came out of nowhere. In fact, it's not even like something I would say. It really came from the stone itself.
And I'm so glad to hear that, because I remember when I was reviewing the video, and it's not easy to have my parts who are worried about did I do a good job, to notice my mistakes. Was about the stone. I asked you, what do you think it represents as a conversation, as opposed to what I should have asked, which is, can you ask the stone to tell you more about itself? What is it doing there, and how is it trying to help? I wonder if that impacted you in any way.
Well, overall, the session was fine for me. It worked very well. But we can still check in and ask the stone if it has anything to say.
Well, that's a great idea. Why don't you go inside and see where the stone is in or around your body?
Very preoccupied with safety. It's a small pebble, but it does feel very preoccupied with safety. And I would say that it's authentic because I think I feel still this constant struggle to do the right amount of self-care and protection. So what we spoke about from my childhood, about having made that very rapid and disturbing change in schools and leaving me that way, I think is something I kind of bear with me always, trying to feel safe and feel comfortable. And so it's not big, but it's sort of there, telling me that you got to watch out. You got to
Yeah.
watch out.
I wonder if the stone knows your true age now, or does it still think you're in third grade?
Sometimes I wonder about my true age. Sometimes I think I'm still in third grade. I suppose it doesn't, to be fair.
Do you want to find out?
Our duty.
To update it right now, or does it feel like that would get deeper into a bigger session and that you're not ready for right now?
I think it's a deeper discussion that would have to take place. But I will say, one of the things that resonated very strongly from the session, and that I appreciated, and it also came out in people's comments, was I was quite skeptical because even though I'm a therapist, I don't practice IFS or EMDR. That's not my specialty, although I know that you're certified and have trained extensively in EMDR and IFS, and I was quite skeptical. And my parts were very skeptical. Sometimes they were surprisingly cooperative, but other times, as you could see in the video, the vote was no. They also were very stubborn, and you had a lot of patience, a lot of patience, and trying to understand the parts and letting them speak for themselves and respecting them. When I was saying how busy I was, which didn't change much, feel like some therapists I feel would come up with this whole you have to take care of yourself, like some kind of preachy type thing, and you just said let the part go to the beach now. You didn't get into whether or not I had time to go to the beach, which of course I felt that I didn't, and I thought that was very good. And in general it felt like the whole IFS thing was so friendly to the parts, and even though I had such bad feelings towards them and how much pain they were causing me, it felt really good, the way that you were treating them, and I wonder if that's a part of IFS, if that's how it's supposed to work.
Well, it certainly is, and the mantra is all parts are welcome. And every part is there for a legitimate reason. And so we develop relationships with them, and they're all good.
And that was interesting because the clothespin, even though the clothespin, one of the clamps turned into a clothespin, which was supposed to then close my nose when I came across stinky things. So again, I had no recollection of this. And in reality, that's something I do not remember. I certainly have continued to encounter many stinking things. Unfortunately, I would say from my own experience and maybe others as well, the last 2 years, the world has not had any shortage of stinky things to encounter. And so I can't say that I use that. I'd like to think about whether or not maybe the pebble or maybe some leftover part of the clamp could be used still for closing the nose in regard to stinking things. But it was very interesting how that played out. I thought it was just so interesting. I didn't realize how much like legacy I was bearing as a person of tradition, a person of honors tradition. I sort of should have expected it, but I think it also was surprising, that old rusty clamp and how it represented not even my own problems, but problems of the generations just going back, and that was very interesting to me. I felt almost like the stone was like part of like you know the to build the pyramids, going all the way back to my ancestors' enslavement. It all felt very real in its own way. Surprisingly, I just didn't think that all that would come up.
Wow. About how you are today as a result of that work?
I think the session was helpful. I can't offer more right now. I think probably the most powerful indicator is I don't even remember the content, and yet it seems like I employed a lot of material from there. And for those that enjoyed, I'd like to forget that people are enjoying watching my personal life, but for all those 13,000 people wrote that they saw themselves in it, they appreciated the skepticism, they appreciated the slow on the resistance of the parts. It was really real, and I hope that you all got something from it, and we'll keep working with our parts in the future and see where it takes us.
Thank you for doing this work with me. You're a good partner
You're welcome.
in every way.
To be continued.
Yes.